Good morning and welcome to the PRII National Conference 2021. I'm Martina Byrne, Chief Executive of the Institute, and I promise you we have a packed programme for you over today and tomorrow. We'll be looking at the key communications issues for public relations advisors. Our focus is on those issues that may have taken a back seat over the past 20 months, but that are bound to influence and impact the work of public relations and strategic communications advisors in the year ahead, whether working in-house or in agency. These include economic disruption, environmental, social and governance issues, corporate purpose and reputation, sponsorship management, and the ever-increasing demand for measurement and evaluation. As well as PR in practice, we have a session tomorrow on people in PR and how our working lives may change. And we will have a session on COVID-19 communications and the lessons learned. Overall, we aim to inform, to challenge and to provoke your thinking. We don't claim to be able to answer all your questions, but we can at least help you to scope out what those questions are and what you need to be aware of. Before I hand over to Frank Condon, our Development and Research Manager, let me just give you one other thing to be aware of. We are indeed broadcasting live from Space 2. So, as you would expect in a convention centre or any other forum, we'll be moving people about and there will be momentary pauses, just like in the before times when we were all together in the one space. And so I'll hand you over to Frank now to take you through some other housekeeping measures.
Thanks, Martina, and good morning. We recommend you put your phones on silent and take advantage of the breaks to catch up on anything pressing over the course of the next couple of days. We are recording this broadcast today and tomorrow, and we'll make it available to delegates after the event. When the opportunity arises, we'll let you know how you can submit your comments and questions. And there is a chat function where you can say hello and comment during the conference.
So, to begin, we welcome Pádraig McKeown, President of the Public Relations Institute of Ireland.
Good morning all. We live in busy times. While no one here today would have needed persuading of the value of communication for and by organisations, one of the undoubted consequences of the constrained circumstances in which we have all lived for the past year and a half is the realisation by many organisations and leaders that planning and guiding effective communications is not easy or something that anyone can do. This isn't just wishful thinking on my part. The recently published Edelman study on the future of corporate communications listed the challenges of retaining loyalty and indeed the presence of a workforce, the navigation of an increasingly complex and activist multi-stakeholder world, shifting expectations on social issues, as well as the challenge of maintaining share of voice in an increasingly noisy public space, as just 4 of 10 reasons why, and I quote, the role of communications has become materially important to leaders and organisations. Those findings bear out other studies, such as this year's European Communications Monitor, which noted communications in the post-pandemic world being transformed, and by the Institute for Public Relations in the US, where 80% of communication leaders said their number of responsibilities have increased in the past 2 years, a rise they anticipate will continue over the next 2 years. That realisation highlights new opportunities and possibilities, and I'm going to briefly touch on a few aspects of those to identify what it means for our professional community and to point also to some of the challenges and responsibilities arising on which we must be proactive. In simple terms, what got us here won't get us further. It is a time of opportunity, but we also have a responsibility to invest in being better, in being professional, to live up to new expectations and build on rather than just exploiting the opportunity. It's a bit cliched to say that the practice of communication is changing, but it is. And this opportunity relies on us taking a lead to show how and where better communication can deliver benefit for our employers and our clients. We have 3 pillars to build around. Firstly, we need to look at our skills. Above all others, we need to be the masters of how to communicate, with an in-depth understanding of the full range of media forms and channels available, embracing the full capability of digital technology to reach audiences from the individual to the global, in word, in soundbite or an image. The capacity to be creative will always be a core skill in what we do. But to avail of the possibilities around us, we must also recognise and build on the potential of other skills. Listening for research and analysis, numeracy to translate data into intelligence, management skills to coordinate a greatly expanded set of demands and resources that are required for sustained communication success in any organisation, and leadership skills to be able to contribute across the table as a peer in the organisations that we work for, and not just as a specialist supplier of a specialist skill. We also need to understand context, bring a much stronger understanding of context, the context in which our work is delivered. If we work in business, for example, we need to be literate in business strategy and in the challenges of resource planning and management. If communications is going to be a more important part of the business, then the thinking of the business has to be a stronger part of the thinking for communications. The same applies in a public service or a non-profit setting. To have influence, we must demonstrate a shared knowledge and understanding of the challenges being faced by those we work with. Being good at communicating isn't enough. We also need to bring a thorough understanding of the wider world into our workplaces. We cannot, for example, advise on how best to interact with a diverse and multicultural society if we do not understand and embrace diversity in how we go about our work. Likewise, we need to understand culture, the challenges of digitalisation as an enabler of society, the impact of climate change. These are the drivers of society that shape how the actions of those we work with and work for will be interpreted and understood by their stakeholders, those with whom they need to communicate. We will be hearing a bit more about the opportunities and the risks for communicators in addressing the ESG agenda later this morning. But bluntly, understanding the influences on the organisations that we work for and with is no longer a nice to have. The third challenge is to behave with honour, to maintain confidence in how we behave in doing our work. Technology is great, but it brings many new challenges to the equity and the fairness in the work that we do. There can be no ambiguity on our part as to our obligation to work within an ethical framework. It is non-negotiable. It is in our hands, however, to address each of these three areas, to build our capacity and then to share what we are doing with others to demonstrate its value to those that we work with. The scope to avail of the many opportunities that we are now seeing will rely greatly on our ability to do so. Looking beyond just what we deliver though, I want to touch on one other characteristic of the world that we work in, where I believe we have a responsibility to society. Humans have sought to deceive others since the beginning of time, but the scope of technology to disseminate falsehood brings that to a whole new level. The experience of the pandemic shows that misinformation, disinformation and malinformation to be almost as much of a danger to society as the virus itself. Those of you who were here last year will have heard Professor Jim McNamara from Sydney talk about this and highlight the point that, whether we want to admit it or not, we may be part of the problem. This is a responsibility we have to recognise, accept and address as a community. It comes down on the one hand to our own individual behaviour, and this reinforces my earlier comments about looking at the ethical behaviour, but it's also about recognising where risk lies in what we do and ensuring that we are clear and open in our communication. It is about being active also in cultivating media literacy in society and contributing to a public confidence in professional media. Tomorrow we will be hearing from Dr. Mike Ryan from the WHO, who has talked about the impact of misinformation in the context of fighting the pandemic. We will also be hearing from Professor PRII, who has had a key role in managing Ireland's pandemic response, but who has also this year been chairing the Commission on the Future of the Media. This is no longer somebody else's problem. If we want to be seen as a reputable and professional practice in our work, we have to contribute to tackling society's exposure to mistruth and misrepresentation in public discourse. Education is central to addressing all of these challenges. Education is at the heart of what this institute does, and we look forward to that being the case into the future, strengthening the case for our members in their work lives. So is the concept of community, and over the coming weeks we will be engaging formally with you as a community to get your take on the strategic direction of the Institute as we look to best address the needs of the practitioner of the future. In the meantime, over the next 2 days, we are very much dealing with the issues of the present. Today is about our economy and its prospects, the ESG agenda as I mentioned, and the measurement of communications. Tomorrow we'll be reflecting on communication and COVID, how it was done and what we might learn. We'll also be looking at new ways of working, and finally we'll be looking at the future of sports sponsorship now that we can all participate again. It's a great mix that covers the strategic and the technical, and which will certainly have something for everybody. So please do enjoy these 2 days of your professional learning, and we look forward to sharing it all with you. Thank you.